Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our session today, Secure Legacy Applications with Azure AD and Datawiza. A few things to go over first. Please type your questions in the Q&A box, and we will either respond during the session or at the end of the presentation. We will be posting a link to our survey. Our surveys provide us with the ability to improve our processes, so we greatly appreciate your feedback. Your speakers today are David Gregory, Senior Program Manager with Microsoft Identity CxP, and Canming Jiang, CEO and co-founder of Datawiza. We'll be kicking off today's session with David Gregory. Over to you, David.
Thank you, Melissa. All right. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today to discuss securing legacy applications with Azure AD and Datawiza. My name is David Gregory, and I am a Senior Program Manager in the Microsoft Identity Product Group. I'm joined here today by Datawiza's CEO, Canming, which I'll introduce in just a few minutes. So let's kick this off. Today's webinar is around Datawiza's integration with Azure AD. Datawiza is a unique SaaS-based access management solution that Microsoft recently partnered with to enable customers to do one-click integration of their apps with Azure AD. Datawiza has a flexible, robust feature set that also can enable you to eliminate web access managers like SiteMinder or Oracle Identity Manager. Now, before we get started, I want to take this opportunity to introduce you to a change we're trying to make in our terminology. Microsoft has this history of calling applications that don't support modern protocols legacy applications. And, honestly, this was a misnomer. And then we tried calling them applications with legacy protocols. And this usually led us to even more questions. And we had to provide a detailed explanation of modern apps versus legacy apps. And so today we're trying something new. We know that applications are the lifeblood of every enterprise, and calling them legacy would never be a fair assessment. And we have lots of customers that are running private applications, either on premises, in the public cloud, or even in private cloud. And then they want to take the next step and make them available to their workforce, and then secure them with conditional access and achieve zero trust. So we're now calling these private applications. Hopefully the third time is the charm. All right, so today we're going to talk about why it's important to secure all your applications, and we'll touch on the economical, the security, and the user experience and the benefits of integrating your apps. And that can be whether they're in the cloud or on premises with Azure AD. We'll talk about options for how you can secure them, and we'll even see a couple demos from Canming and Datawiza. Now, first off, I want to quickly touch on how I see the world has changed. When I started at Microsoft back in 2005, we couldn't even get email without being connected to the corporate VPN. And then a few years later, as mobility started to take off, that quickly changed. And we could start getting email on our mobile devices and our PCs without being connected to VPN. And then over the last decade, Microsoft has enabled us to get access to those on-premises applications through a cloud-native reverse proxy that doesn't require a VPN. Now, there still are a few applications that require VPN, but that number is quickly dwindling. Now, then we have over the past 18 months with COVID, we've seen all companies accelerating their efforts to enable their employees to work from anywhere. And I think back 15, 20 years ago when we had this dream of just having a device and an internet connection, and that's all you needed. And I think that dream is going to be realized very soon. But then you think about all the freedom employees have. to move around, stay productive. And the flip side is, how do admins continue to keep themselves secure from phishing attacks, ransomware, or the most recent supply chain attacks? And this is where customers have started to implement zero trust. So regardless of whether your apps are behind a VPN or not, integrating your apps with Azure AD and Datawiza can help you get started on your zero trust journey. The last thing I'll say on this slide is I was talking to a CISO back a few years ago, and I think he summarized it to me very well. He said, I have to do everything I can to keep us out of the courts and out of the papers. And I think that's just a perfect summary. So why should you secure all your applications with Azure AD? Well, first off, for the last couple of years, customers have been telling us they've been building up this technical debt. They have a lot of solutions in-house. They're dealing with, over 40 security vendors, and then they have to figure out a way to kind of integrate and stitch that all together. Because of mobility, users are telling them that the user experience really matters. And then lastly, as new breaches are announced, customers really want to start implementing zero trust. And so this is where Azure AD comes in to simplify and centralize access, improve the user experience, and of course, help customers achieve zero trust. One thing I do want to say is, our goal here is to balance security with user experience. And we think with Azure AD, we can achieve both. Number two, even today, customers tell us that they think Azure AD is exclusively for Office 365. But that's not true. Azure AD can be used to secure access to third-party SaaS applications like Workday and Salesforce, other cloud platforms like Amazon Web Services or Google GCP, private applications on premises, and of course, Office 365. And here's the kicker. Many customers already own and are using Office 365, which means they already have a cloud-native identity and access management solution that has their users and groups and devices. And then it's just a matter of enabling those investments that they already have in Azure AD. So last year, Microsoft went out and commissioned a study with Forrester to help quantify the economic benefits of securing all your apps with a single identity solution. And I want to emphasize a single identity solution, because when we talk to customers, they say, I have multiple platforms, multiple identity solutions. And so we want to commission this study for a single identity solution. The results of this study showed that customers who secure all of their apps with Azure AD can achieve a return on investment of 123%. Now, integrating your apps with Azure AD and Datawiza can help with a couple things. It can help reduce costs by retiring on-premises web access manager platforms like SiteMinder or Oracle, can reduce the likelihood of data breaches, and then of course reduce help desk costs associated with password resets and employee productivity. Now let's talk about the security of Azure AD and conditional access. Once you bring those applications into Azure AD, you can immediately start applying these robust access control policies with our conditional access. And I'll give you a couple examples of some policies we see customers enforce. We see some customers that say, I only want to enforce MFA only for users that are coming from outside my corporate network. Although we're starting to see customers evolve to say, you know what, I want to enforce MFA regardless of where the users are coming from. I want MFA regardless, because we can no longer trust the boundary of the corporate network. But like I mentioned earlier, one of our goals is to improve the user experience and security. So what we're now seeing some customers do is only prompt for MFA when they see a risky event. Or conditional access even allows you to enforce compliant device or MFA. What this means is that the user will only see a multi-factor authentication prompt if they're using a non-compliant device. Now, with conditional access, the choice is all yours, and it's because of these type of granular yet robust policies that's really the power of Azure AD conditional access. But I did want to quickly touch on something here. Earlier, I mentioned that Azure AD and conditional access is for all applications, right? So, of course, it's for third-party SaaS applications like ServiceNow, Workday, Concur, et cetera, et cetera. It can be for cloud-hosted apps in Azure, AWS, or GCP. And it can even be for private or on-premises applications. But this is where Datawiza can come in and can bridge the app into Azure AD. And they have some unique capabilities to not only bridge the app, but do it in a one-click fashion. Now, before we move on, I want to quickly touch on one of the other benefits of bringing all those applications to Azure AD. As soon as you bring those applications into Azure AD, you immediately gain new capabilities. One example is passwordless authentication. We talk to customers and they say passwordless authentication is some far out future and it's something I cannot realistically implement today. But once again, that's not true. As soon as you bring those applications and integrate them into Azure AD, you immediately gain this new capability. So we think Azure AD certainly is the best of breed security. Now, you might be thinking, well, Microsoft and Azure AD has something called the Azure AD application proxy. And we do. And so when customers approach us about taking a private application, whether it's in public private cloud or on premises, and integrating that into Azure AD, we certainly lead with the Azure AD app proxy. This can allow you to reduce your on-prem footprint, potentially retire your traditional VPN, or maybe even remove web access managers like SiteMinder or Oracle. All right. Azure AD app proxy is comprised of really two pieces. The first being a reverse proxy to publish those private applications out to your workforce, without requiring a VPN. So that's the first part. The second part is the ability to define access policies within Azure AD so that when the user goes to the application, they get prompted for either compliant device or multi-factor authentication, or they have to be coming from a certain network, et cetera, et cetera. So app proxy supports the following types of applications. Just recently, we announced support for header-based authentication, but it also supports forms-based or password-based authentication. If you have applications that are doing Windows integrated auth like Kerberos, those are natively supported. And then we have support for things like SAML and then also remote desktop gateway. But for some customers, app proxy isn't always a good fit. So I'll give you one reason and one customer we saw recently where app proxy wasn't a good fit and why we're leveraging partners like Datawiza. So Azure App Proxy is primarily a remote access solution so that when users are out of the office or on the road or working from home, they can access those applications without potentially VPN, right? But for users that are sitting inside the corporate network, because maybe due to the COVID restrictions being released, we're seeing employees come back into the office. If you were to use the Azure AD App Proxy to secure those same applications, those users and requests would have to get routed back out to Azure AD, which can cause some latency. So this is where partner solutions like Datawiza can come in and offer some compelling differentiators. And so this really leads us to our secure hybrid access program. Because what happened is Microsoft acknowledged that there's a lot of applications. There's going to be a lot of complexity and requirements. And what we found is that a one-size-fit-all approach just didn't work. And so this is why Microsoft announced the Secure Hybrid Access Program back a few years ago. This program is a collection of unique partnerships that would literally have a one-click integration with Azure AD. So I want to quickly touch on some of the benefits of the Secure Hybrid Access Program. Customers can secure applications with Azure AD even if the app doesn't support modern protocols, right? You know, Azure AD is a modern identity access management solution. It supports things like SAML, WSFed, and OpenID Connect. But we know there are other protocols out there, different applications. And so, you know, one of the benefits of this Secure Hybrid Access Program was, hey, even if Azure AD doesn't support the app, we can still integrate the app with Azure AD and get the security benefits of that. Number two, we have, like I mentioned before, certain partners like Datawiza can totally displace legacy WAM platforms like SiteMinder or Oracle. We talk to customers and they say, I want to modernize my applications. I'm still paying for SiteMinder or Oracle. You know, I know it's going to take time to modernize these apps, but I want to start implementing my zero trust journey today. And so with platforms like Datawiza, you can integrate those apps with Azure AD, get modern security, start achieving zero trust while you work to modernize those applications. And that's really the summary of all of this is let's start that zero trust journey now, and then you can start modernizing or sunsetting those applications over the longer term. Now, one thing I do want to also touch on is we have other partnerships as part of the Secure Hybrid Access Program, but those ones at the top were the ones that we announced at Ignite just back a few months ago. Now, let's start talking about Datawiza. Datawiza was one of the partners we announced back at Ignite. They're probably one of my favorite partners to work with. They're super responsive and super passionate about adding the features just to make that user and admin experience the best possible user experience. They have this cloud native solution that one-click integrates with Azure AD and our conditional access. And then, like I mentioned before, they can take out WAM solutions like SiteMinder or Oracle. But I don't want to steal their thunder. So without further ado, I want to introduce Datawiza and Canming.
Hey, David, thanks a lot for your introduction and kind words about the Datawiza. And, you know, we are a partner of Microsoft, and we are, you know, in this Secure Hybrid Access program. And we would like, you know, to show you why people need us, right? Since they got so many options over there, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
What challenges they are facing, right? So that's what I would like to talk first.
Hey, Canming, before we start, I got some questions for you.
Sure, go ahead.
You know, first off, I wanted to say, rarely do I get to do a webinar with the CEO. So I'm apparently moving up in the world. Really.
We are a startup.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you came up with the idea of Datawiza?
Sure. So basically, you know, before founding this company, Datawiza, I was tech lead of another startup. So I have been in the startup world for a while. So that startup called Shape Security. What we have been working on is the first, you know, identity security solution. So basically, it's how do you secure your accounts? Basically, those identities, right? From those bots who are guessing your accounts passwords, right? We are the first one building such a solution, and later on, that company, Shape Security, got acquired by F5 for $1 billion at the beginning of last year. And I was one of the early engineers at Shape Security. And before that, I was a senior engineer at Cisco. So I have been in this industry for a while. And recently, we see the booming of those modern identity platforms, say Microsoft Azure AD and also Azure AD B2C, right? But we also see a gap, and you also mentioned, right? between those identity platforms and those applications. How do you bridge the applications to those modern identity platforms like Azure AD? That's that's a gap we are seeing, and we are trying to fill this gap.
Gotcha. Okay. Now I noticed that you call yourself the first access management as a service solution, and so it sounds like you're really trying to define a new category. Can you just quickly touch on how you define this new category?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked this question, David. As I said, we already see a lot of innovations in this identity space, and people give it a nice name, right? You guys have a nice name called Identity as a Service, or IDaaS, right? Every person knows IDaaS, but we think IAM includes two parts. One part is a very important part is identity, and the other part is access. Right, that's why it's called IAM. Identity IAM. In our mind, IAM equals to identity management and access management. Right.
Gotcha.
So
okay.
We are focused on the access management part. But if we look at the current popular existing softwares, most of them are those on-premise WAM solutions. Say you also mentioned the names, right? CSI Miner, Oracle, those things. And okay. Most of them are built maybe 1 decade or 2 decades ago, using the last generation technology. So we think we can leverage the native cloud native technology to give users a more, I would say, a modern experience, and we call it AM as a service, a mass. if you want to map it to the IDaaS, right? Or
all right, so it's like you're trying to take the access management and really just focus on that and nail that.
Yeah. Yes. That's why we are working with you guys. We want to not only you have IDaaS for identity management, but you also have some SaaS-based solution like us, right? A MAS for your access management. Then you have a whole IAM SaaS solution, right?
Gotcha. Okay. Well, the stage is yours, so take it away.
Okay, I think thank you, David. We talk about the big picture, how fancy is IDaaS and access management mass, right? But for this webinar, we really want to focus on specific problems we want to solve, right? And especially here, the topic of this webinar is that migrating private applications to Azure AD. So private applications could be, I think, David, you already mentioned what are those private applications, right? Those applications are not those SaaS applications. For example, not ServiceNow, not Salesforce, not Workday, right? But those applications, you guys, customers, you could be a Fortune 500 insurance company, right? You got a lot of other applications. Those applications are managed by you. For example, you bought the software from Oracle, you bought some CRM software and you installed it in your own data center. And maybe you also built your own applications, your private applications. You have your own developers. They built maybe in the past years, they have built hundreds of applications. You guys maintain and install in your own data center. But how do you connect those applications to a modern identity platform like Azure AD? And I think the first challenge people, when we talk to our customers, they told us it's a steep cost. How can I do that, right? So you have 2 options. One option is you are using those upgraded, I would say, gateway solutions, right? They are usually, as we said, they are very similar to a web access manager, but all of them are built on those last generation technology. They are very expensive. They are difficult to use, difficult to maintain, and you spend a lot of not only money but also your engineer resource and admin resource on those legacy stuff. And the second option is you ask your developers to rewrite your applications. But for some third-party software you bought, for example, the CRM software you bought, you don't have the source code. You cannot revise it. And for those applications, you have the source code. you still need to spend months, even years of engineering resource rewriting the source code, do the testing, and a lot of rewrite and engineering efforts on upgrade those applications to speak, for example, some OIDC modern protocols to talk to Azure AD. That's a lot of cost, and that's number one challenge we are seeing. And another challenge is about granular access control. For example, after you hook up your application to Azure AD, how do you enable, for example, URL level access control? For example, for a particular application, you may only want some URLs or some parts of this application be accessed by a group, say HR group, but they cannot be accessed by, for example, engineer group. That's another question. And usually people need to implement such authorization themselves for those private applications. That's another challenge we see people are facing. And lastly, people are moving to multi-cloud. This is a very complex hybrid environment. And think about you have applications in different places. How do you manage them? How do you have some access policy changes, and you can let them take effective immediately, right? I think most of the guys we are seeing is they are still edit those configuration files. They make SSH to the box and change the configuration files of those applications, which is not so convenient.
Hey, Ken.
Sure.
We have a couple of questions from the audience. First one being, with Datawiza and Azure AD, do I have to migrate my applications to the cloud, or is it a matter of integrating them with Datawiza and Microsoft?
I think that's we give you the power to integrate your application to Azure AD, but you have the option to deploy your application. It could be in on-premise, it could be on those public clouds like Azure, right? So it doesn't matter where the application sits, and anywhere we can help you connect to Azure AD.
Okay, so you don't have to move the cloud to an IaaS or PaaS cloud platform. It can remain where it is, and we can still bring the app into Azure AD with Datawiza.
Exactly. Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a very good question. That's what we mentioned here: hybrid, complex hybrid environment. No matter your application sits, right? We give you the power to connect to Azure AD.
Now, hey, one more question here.
Sure.
From the audience. It says, there's the conversation. It seems like it's always around securing applications, but what about APIs?
Yeah, APIs is is a trending topic. When we are talking to our customers, yes, APIs, we can also support API. For example, you can use our product called Datawiza Access Broker, which is a proxy sitting in front of your application, but it also can be put in front of your APIs. So we will validate the access token, enforce the access policies, and do other stuff needed to secure your APIs. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, great questions. And okay, now I would like to introduce the industry's only a MaaS solution. As David, we talked at the beginning of my talk, right? So we have some very cool features. First of all, this is a SaaS-based solution, and compared to other existing or previous legacy gateway solutions, it's super easy to use, manage, right, and config. And for example, we have this very cool feature. I think we need to thank you, David. It was you who proposed this feature to us, and we implemented it together. And it's called one-click migration to Azure AD. So basically, all you need to do is, in our Cloud Console, you give us, those applications basic information. For example, the application's address, the application's name, and after filling out those information, we provide a button for you to click, and that's all you need to do. We will show that in our demo later. And second core feature I think we are delivering is a centralized cloud management. So basically, as we said, we can manage, we have a proxy sitting in front of your applications or APIs, but such proxies are managed by a centralized cloud management console. It can enforce fine-grained access policies from the cloud management console across all applications in hybrid environments, and the changes take effective in minutes, right?
Hey, Can,
Sure.
You talked about Datawiza having this reverse proxy solution, and earlier I talked about app proxy and being a remote access solution and some of the caveats of that. Like, how does Datawiza differentiate? Do they have like a sidecar deployment so that internal users get the same robust access policies?
Yes, exactly. So as David, you mentioned application proxy. I think application proxy is a very good product for remote access. But if your users say, hey, your company's employees are sitting on VPN, right? They are already on VPN, or they are sitting in the office, right, in the corporate network. And if they are using application proxy, then that will ask them to route their traffic back to Azure AD in the cloud, right? And that will incur some latency, and some customers may have a strict requirement on those performance, and they may also have some security concerns. But for Datawiza, our proxy is very close to the application. It can be deployed as a gateway or as a sidecar or agent, right? With your application. In that way, it does not need to route all the traffic to Azure AD. It only routes those, it only talks to Azure AD for login purpose, right? We need to finish the single sign-on protocol, for example, OIDC protocol. Then we need to communicate with Azure AD. After that, everything flows inside the network.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And lastly, as we already mentioned, we have an out-of-box integration with Azure AD. We have built-in connection to Azure AD via OIDC and some more protocols, enable users to log in through Azure AD. And in the meantime, once your application is hooked up with Azure AD, you can use those more advanced features David has already mentioned, right? For example, conditional access, multiple factor authentication, those things you can use it together with Datawiza. And here is the technology part, and I know many of the audience are from the technology background, and they may like this slide better. And first of all, as I already mentioned, our Datawiza platform includes two parts, two important components, as you can see in this diagram. The number one component is called Datawiza Access Broker. It's a distributed, lightweight, cloud-native proxy that integrates with Azure AD and helps you enforce policy-based, URL level access control, as you can see here in the middle of this finger. And also we have a unified cloud management console to manage those proxies, the Datawiza Access Broker. And you can, add as an IT admin or security admin, you only need to deal with this Datawiza Cloud Management Console. You don't have to, for example, SSH to the server where your application is running and change the configuration files. You don't have to do that. Everything can be done, through the nice graphic UI or API, and it will take changes, in 1 minute or even several seconds, right? For you to manage this Datawiza Access Broker. And let's take a look at how the experience look like from the user's perspective. And the users could be your customer, partner, or employee, or contractor. So basically, they are trying to access some application, and our Datawiza access broker is deployed, in front of those applications. Could be, as shown in this diagram, is a gateway mode, but it could be deployed as agent mode, sidecar mode, basically in the same server of the application seats, right? And if we see a request coming in, we will check if it's authenticated or not. If not, we will do the authentication with Azure AD on behalf of those application and enforce other access policies. Yeah. I think that's it for this technology integration. And why Datawiza? I think we touched this a little bit, but we would like to emphasize several points as well here. So first of all, if you look at other solutions, usually they are heavyweight gateway that delivered as a virtual machine, right? Which may require you, maybe 200 gigabytes disk storage and several core of CPU cores, right? And could also be deployed as delivered as RPM or some even hardware. So those we think are the last generation technologies. And also the control plane is sitting together with the data plane, not like what we have here, right? Our control plane is here, data plane is here, they are separate. But for other solutions, their data plane, control plane, and even logging are sitting together in a same VM or hardware or server, right? As you can see here. But for Datawiza, we offer a very modern solution. First of all, we have a lightweight cloud native proxy, and this cloud native container image is about 100 megabytes, right? Compared to maybe 200 gig disk requirement for virtual machine. That's a very different requirement, right? And this thing could be also very user-friendly, even for developers to play around with it.
Hey, can you do? I assume you could deploy multiple proxies for, load balancing or different requirements, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, I think because this is a distributed proxy, you can deploy it anywhere. For example, with your different applications, but you can also deployment, several proxy together to serve, maybe hundreds of applications together, right?
Okay.
Yeah, and we for control plane, as we already showed, we have a centralized cloud management console, which makes everything easier, right? And lastly, because we have such a cloud-based management console, we can, enable a cloud-based logging and visibility. So to summarize it, our solution is super easy to install, configure, and manage, and it's designed for hybrid multi-cloud, and cost of ownership is much lower. And we enable such centralized logging and provide you holistic real-time visibility across all your access activities for all your applications. Yeah. And here we would like to show you guys a case study. This is a Fortune 500 IT infrastructure company. They got about 15,000 employees, and previously they were using multiple identity providers. And for example, they are using one legacy identity platform, but they are also using Office 365, right? That means they are already using Azure AD, but this customer wants to converge to a single one identity platform, say Azure Active Directory, and that's how we work together with Microsoft to bring this customer to Azure AD environment. And as you can see here, they got a lot of applications. So those are private. Those includes Oracle CRM, right, like a SIBO application, and they also have some in-house solutions developed by their in-house developers. And previously, those applications were sitting behind a legacy WAM solution. And here we are working together with Microsoft to bring all those applications to Azure AD in the cloud. And as you can see here, so we deployed using agent mode. So basically, it means each application will have a Datawiza access broker, but all those access brokers are managed by a single Datawiza cloud cloud console. Yeah, and okay, sorry, there's something wrong with my. Give me a sec. Yeah, and this customer, since they are a large enterprise customer, they got previously they are also using Azure AD on premise, and here they use Azure AD Connect to sync up those Azure AD accounts into the cloud. Sorry, so they are using Azure AD Connect to connect this on-premise Active Directory to Azure Active Directory in the cloud. So that's a case study, and we are helping them to migrate, those private applications to Azure AD in a very short manner. Actually, for each application, it only take half an hour to configure them, and you are done. Yeah.
Hey, we do have a question from the audience. It says,
Sure.
Can Datawiza provide a bridge from OpenID Connect to Kerberos and do the credential translation? I have a few apps that still require Kerberos or NTLM authentication.
Yeah, the Kerberos, that's something we also support. Yeah.
And to that, the person that asked that question, Azure AD App Proxy does support Kerberos, but like we did talk about earlier, those requests are routed back out to the cloud, and so that's one of the differentiators for Datawiza.
Yeah, I think the understanding is very correct. Yeah.
So you're saying, like, if I have hundreds of applications, how do I estimate how long it will take to bring all these applications under one purview of Datawiza and Azure AD?
Yeah, I think based on our experience with our customers, so previously when they started to engage with us, they will be very cautious, right? Because those applications are critical to them. So we will start slower. Let's pick one or two applications and get the hands dirty and knows how it works. And after that, we can speed a lot quickly, right? For maybe for the first 3 or 5 applications, you need several hours, but for the later applications, you may configure them in in several minutes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we talked about how Datawiza is different and the differences of Datawiza, but here we want to summarize the benefits of using Datawiza together with Azure AD. So first of all, we make your migration.
Hey, Ken, I don't know that the slides are progressing.
Sorry about that. Let me reshare.
Thank you.
Seems we got some technical issues.
There we go.
Okay. So as I said, I would like to summarize the benefits of Datawiza and Azure AD. So the first benefit is we make migration cost effective and fast. And the second one is we enhance the security posture with a zero trust architecture. Think about those Datawiza access broker distributed with your application. That's a true zero trust architecture, because every request coming into your application must go through Datawiza access broker, and we will work together with Azure AD to make sure it's authenticated, make sure it meets all the policy check, right? It have the right permissions, right authorization. So this is a true zero trust architecture. And lastly, since we are a SaaS-based solution, And also, my Azure AD is a SaaS-based solution. So basically, we are streaming the operations and simplify the management a lot. And we will show you all these benefits in the following demo. So hopefully can give you guys a more real sense how it works in the real life. So here I would like to show you, first of all, this is the demo setup. So this is the before, right? Before we will show you an application. This application can be accessed by this URL called app.vfort.com. This is a header-based application without any authentication at all. Then we will insert Datawiza as access broker in front of this application. And this Datawiza access broker will talk to Azure AD to finish the authentication process on behalf of this application, as you can see in this box right here. And this Datawiza access broker and this application is running on the same server. You can think about this as the sidecar or agent mode, right? Which is different than the gateway mode we showed you previously. And we will show you how the Datawiza management console works. As an admin, you got the first-hand experience as an admin. And here is the demo steps, as I already mentioned. First, we will show you a header-based web application without any authentication. Then we will show you how to seamlessly integrate this application to Azure AD with Datawiza one-click capability. And we will show you how to pass the required information via headers to this application. Okay, now let me bring the demo. So give me a second. Okay, sorry. So you guys can see, Google login page, right? David, is that what it is?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. I need someone to help me check, confirm. So we will. This is the application, header-based application I showed you without any authentication. And this application is expecting some headers, right? This is Datawiza access broker demo application. As you can see, this application is expecting some headers. It already got a host, but the email is missing, first name is missing, last name is missing, groups are missing. We will show you how to connect this application to Azure AD with one click. Yeah. Okay, let me stop sharing this thing and show you how to connect this application to Azure AD. So I believe you guys can see a login page. This time is Datawiza login page, right? And we work, with Azure AD seamlessly. As you can see, there's a button, login button at the bottom, right? So you can log in through Azure AD, work and school account, right? You guys can see that, right? Work
so this is the admin experience?
Yes, this is the admin experience. Show you how to, to configure. And this is a 5 minutes configuration if you are familiar with our platform. So we always said we want the admin can use 5 minutes to onboard a non-standard application. Non-standard application means those application does not have such a OIDC or SAML capability, but we give them the power to connect to Azure AD.
Okay.
Yeah. So you log in as an Azure AD admin, using your own Azure AD account. And now you are in Datawiza portal. And let me go back. So here you will use this yellow button to get started. And here we use a term called deployment. So one deployment could, is a concept. Basically, you want a deployment to share the same configurations, right?
So it could be one or more applications?
Yeah, one deployment can support multiple applications. Yeah.
Okay.
And you give it a provisioning key. Remember, our components has two parts. One is access broker, one is the cloud console. For such a provisioning key is for the Datawiza Access Broker talk to the Cloud Console to get those configuration. And here, we can add an application here, right? And we get a header-based application. And the public domain is the domain you want your users to use to access, right? And the listen port is where the Datawiza Access Broker ports, right? And the upstream server, remember this server is your application's address, where your application is deployed. So here, it's deployed on localhost 3001. And we can configure IDP. So here IDP could be multiple IDP, and we support Azure AD and Azure AD B2C as well. And here's where the magic happens. We have this one-click feature, and we will automatically create one application registration on your Azure AD tenant on behalf of you, since you log in through your Azure AD account, right? Then we will have such permission. So here it talks to your Azure AD tenant to create this application registration on your Azure AD account. I think it's working. And after that, you are done. And now you can deploy Datawiza Access Broker using a very simple YAML Docker Compose file, as you can see here. And after that, let's go back to the where your application it is, right? This application is running on 3001 port. And here we need to deploy it together with Datawiza Access Broker so that it can talk to Azure AD. Okay, now they are running together. Let's double check it. As you can see here, this Datawiza Access Broker is running on 9772, and it will forward or redirect the traffic to this 3001 if that request can meet those access policies and finish the authentication. And lastly, you need to change your load balancer. Remember, previously your application is running on 3001. Now you need to change it to the new port of Datawiza Access Broker, which is 9772. And that's it, you are done. And now let's see how it works for the user, right? Now access this application again. You're now required to log in through Azure AD. Now we log in as a user.
So this is the end user experience now.
Yes, this is the end user experience. It's required to log in, and you can also set up multi-factor authentication or conditional access, those things. But here we will not show you. So we will just show you the login process. As you can see here, you're logging, but there is still one piece missing. That piece is about these headers. The application is still not getting the headers. We will show you how to get those headers. And you need some extra configuration. So let's show you how the headers works. Now you don't have these headers. This application is expecting them. How do we configure them? You go back to Datawiza Cloud Management Console. This attributes pass functionality. Basically, you pass what you get from Azure AD and pass them to the application through headers. And you can, make some translation here. For example, the field name you got from Azure AD claim is the first capital N name, right? But your application maybe is expecting all lowercase. You can do the translation here, and we can do the same for last name. And we support a different type, as you can see, not only header, but also JWT token, if your application is expecting JWT. And we do it for email. and groups. Okay, I think that's it. Let's visit the application again. Boom. Now you got all the green checks here. That means you got all the expected headers, as you can see here. Oh, oops, this is the last thing. It's an email, first name, last name. I see my name's over there. And my groups, HR engineer. And
hey,
yeah,
Ken, we have about 5 minutes left, and we have some questions that are sitting in the Q&A, and I wanted to surface those real quick.
Yeah, I think that's it for the demo. I think it's let's go to the Q&A very quickly. Yeah.
All right, so first question, does the Datawiza agent reside on the same servers as Azure App Proxy?
It could be resolved. It could sit in any server. It could, as long as that server can talk to your application, right? But it can also be in the same server of your application. So we support different modes.
Gotcha. So what you're saying is it can be the gateway model or the sidecar model, but it can reside on any server, including on the server, the application server itself. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Is there a test process before implementation?
Yes, and we even have a free trial. Everybody can get a free trial if you log into this URL. Yeah, and we have very good documentation, which is docs.datawiza.com. You can reference it, but you are welcome to talk to us, and we can help you set up the free trial, or if you have any question regarding how it works and how to deploy it, feel free to contact us.
Okay, and then I think we touched on this earlier. Someone asked whether the DAB access broker is that a 1-to-1 ratio?
No, that's not. It could be a 1-to-N ratio. Yeah.
Okay. And then is the DAB a dedicated hardware device, or it runs on Windows or Linux VM? I think we already touched on that. It can really be any server.
Yeah, it could be any server. So we deliver it as a Docker container. As long as you have a Docker environment, I believe you can install Docker on Windows, on Linux, or even on Mac, right? You can deploy the DAB. Actually, DAB is a very lightweight proxy. As I said, the Docker image is only 100 megabytes compared to other solutions, which may require 200 gigabytes disk space.
Okay. And then do you support LDAP integration?
Yes, as I think we have that diagram, but we didn't have time to talk to. Give me a second. Sorry. As you can see here, we can also talk to your on-premise LDAP if you want to bring extra information to DAB and to enable some advanced access policies. Right.
Okay. And then someone just asked, was a free trial link, and I think that's on the slide that you shared earlier, right?
Yeah, I will go back to that slide here again. Sorry, guys, too many slides.
Okay, so and as far as I know, everyone that attended will get a copy of the deck, so you'll be able to get those links, in the deck as well.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're about 1 minute left. I did want to share one last slide as a closeout. So just give me 1 second here while I get prepared. 1 second. All right. So we're finishing up here. We wanted to give you a good overview of how you can secure your private applications with Datawiza and Azure AD. Some things I did want to highlight. First step is it's a really good exercise to go and discover and assess the apps that you have. Many times customers tell us we just don't know what apps we have. So I would start that journey as soon as possible, because we know you're going to have lots of apps with different configurations. So start that journey of doing discovery today. And then once you've done that discovery, you're going to want to start connecting your apps to Azure AD, either with native capabilities with our app proxy, or like I mentioned, we have these unique secure hybrid access partnerships. And then once you've connected the apps, you'll want to secure them with Azure AD and conditional access. You can find more information about all of this at the short link of aka.ms/app management, and you can follow us on any of the social handles down below. And do I need to hand it back to Melissa? You want to close out, Melissa?
Absolutely. So it looks like we've come to the end of our session today. We have posted a link to the survey, and we will be sending out a link to the recording along with the survey link again and the slide deck. So thank you again, everyone, for joining, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.